Welcome in, Johnny Radio, sports companion show. We've done one of these before. We are joined, it's obviously myself, Brad Wakai, Johnny Radio himself, Matt Johnston, Tyson Gentri, Kyle Banashefski. First and foremost, I got to ask how you're doing. We're going to start with the Johnny Radio man himself. Matt, how was your day today?
Today's been great. We had a great weekend of basketball. We're going to get a lot into that. As far as myself, Brad, thank you for asking. It's always it's always a polite way to introduce someone. It's good to see other faces on the screen besides yours. So
always
very happy to be here.
Always is. Tyson, we'll go around the horn here. How was your day today? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm glad to be back. It's been a minute. We were trying to set this thing up for a little while, but we got it all done, and it couldn't have come at a better time. We got a lot of stuff to go over today.
We do. And the man who is really just fucking our schedule up, Kyle Banashefski. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Brad. It's a pleasure to be back with you boys. My schedule down here has been a little rough recently, so I apologize for that. Really diving in deep to some stuff at work and getting serious again in the gym. So been busy with that, but all is well. We have a lot to discuss here tonight.
Absolutely. And I think he's getting back in the gym because we got a lot of pro days, and we got shirtless mammoths just running around, and you're just like, God, I wish I looked like that. So maybe we'll have to dive into that. That's something that Kyle's getting back into because of that. But like Johnny alluded to, we're going to start with college basketball, the biggest tournament really in the world. I think 64 teams. I think the World Cup's going to eclipse that in a few sessions, but 64 teams, really 68 if you include the first four. But now we are standing with four left. Gonzaga, they're going to face UCLA, who's been the Cinderella of all Cinderella runs on this one. And then the other side of the bracket, Baylor is going to take on Houston, about the two Texas teams and old Southwest Conference foes. So I want to start this before we dive into teams, anything like that. I heard, and I've kind of seen on social media, other people say that this has not been a great tournament and that they haven't been a fan of it. Thoughts on that?
Sounds like people are losing a lot of money out there. I don't know. It's been a tournament really filled with a lot of upsets. But you look at it where it stands right now. If you don't look at Michigan and you exclude them, it's really all chalk in the semifinals, which is, usually not the case. We usually have some 6-7 teams flirting in there. Really, UCLA, I hate to call them a Cinderella because of their, stance of the program, but, it's really been all chalk leading up to the Final Four here. And there really haven't been that many surprises. We've had some good games recently, but, from my opinion, I think it's been a good tournament overall.
Yeah, I was so starved of not having March Madness after last year. It could have just been straight chalk all the way through, and I would have enjoyed it. So, to say it's not a good tournament, I think we're spoiled because, Gonzaga's played really well. They've been beating teams the way we thought they were going to. Baylor's been playing really well, and that was kind of the two teams before. If Oklahoma State makes a run or Illinois makes a run, then, we're looking at a really, what everyone thought was going to happen. A 15 seed winning games, Oral Roberts in the Sweet 16, how are you going to complain? Sister Jean is 103. She's chilling in the stands. I had a good time watching this tournament, and it's not done. And these games coming up are going to be battles, man.
Yeah, I agree. And I think credit needs to be given out to, everyone involved with making this tournament possible. In the grand scheme of things, it could be like last year, and there may not have been a tournament at all unless they got it together. On the point of the games, I believe that Gonzaga is clearly the best team. And there were some upsets early, and I think people are probably reacting the way they are just because early on I think people did probably lose a lot of money, and people's brackets got busted right off the jump, especially with Illinois losing. I know a lot of people had them in the finals, myself included. But, hey, it's just really nice to be able to watch a huge tournament like this really, go through all the way with no real foreseeable issues. So hats off to them.
Absolutely. Before we dive into Gonzaga, because they're the team that it's their tournament to lose. And I think people are saying that after their first game of the season, after you saw them with Jalen Suggs. But yeah, a ton of credit needs to be given to the NCAA. I know they're a punching bag for a lot of factors, and deservedly so in many cases. But putting this into the bubble in Indianapolis, in pretty famous arenas, right? Like Indiana's arena, Hinkle, Butler's arena. Then you got the Pacers stadium or arena. It's been fantastic, right? You got the fans. A lot of these kids haven't played in front of fans in a while. So getting that natural juice back in the arena has been awesome. And like to Tyson's point, I mean, how we're really going to complain about a March Madness tournament when we literally didn't have one last year? Like it seems crazy to me. And especially when you have Oral Roberts, who was literally an inch away from going to the Elite Eight. Abilene Christian, they beat Texas, who was going a long way. Loyola Chicago, obviously another story there, and a lot of lower seeds performing and going the distance. So, I mean, I think it's been fantastic storyline wise as well. But I think the big storyline and what we need to dive into right now, Gonzaga. I mean, they kick the shit out of teams. They've only not beaten a team by double digits once, and that was beating West Virginia by 5. So every game they're 30-0. They've won 29 games by double digits. And everybody's like, oh, their schedule's soft. But you look at who they played, and they played really solid teams. Iowa, they crushed. Virginia, they smoked. And it's just been an impressive run for this school. I'm rooting for them. I like Mark Few. I actually went to a basketball camp at Gonzaga. He taught some drills, and he was great. And you can see why players love him. He owned the room, and I'm rooting for him to finally get it done. But I mean, this team with Jalen Suggs at the helm they just taken that program to another level. It's impressive to watch.
Yeah, you see a lot of arguments online, like, is Gonzaga the greatest basketball team of all NCAA basketball team of all time? And there's a lot of debate in that, obviously, but the conversation is still stirred. And you look at that game against USC, they ended up winning by 19. They come out hot, they're up 7-0. They never look back. And you look at a USC defense that over this year has been fantastic. I think they were the 4th best defense ranked in the country, and they just torched them. They were doing like a Globetrotters like atmosphere. They were doing bounce passes, power dunks, all these fancy moves. They did whatever they want with USC. And and that was really their best test, you know what I mean? And, the way they're set up right now with UCLA, and then, heading into the final against either Baylor or Houston, I really don't see anyone stopping them.
I think personally, like, for this year's Gonzaga team, it's the best of both worlds, right? Because in years past, it's been like the Gonzaga style of basketball, but it's been like Karnowski is the big guy in the post. He's never playing in the NBA. This year, they got 2 solid NBA players in Suggs and Kispert. Drew Timmy's killing people. So it's like Gonzaga of the past, but they moved into a more modern college basketball style. They're getting up and down the court quickly. They're locking people down on defense, and it's been impressive to watch. And like, to your point about them not playing anybody, they tried to play Baylor. Baylor got COVID. They went and they scheduled everybody they could, and they beat the shit out of everybody that they put in front of them. Like, they're 30-point favorites for a reason. And like, they're not winning those games by 11, 12. Like, they're pushing the spread every time against those West Coast Conference schools. And like, BYU was no joke. So their schedule was better than people give them credit for, and they're just much more athletic than they've been in years past. And I think that's like the real difference between this Gonzaga team and the ones a couple years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I have them winning the tournament. And going into the USC game, I was actually a little bit worried. I mean, USC was playing hot. They were shooting, I believe, over 50% from the three-point line. And just after watching that game, it was just a dismantling. And Gonzaga is just nonstop on offense. They can score at will. And when they need to lock down and do what they need to do, especially down low, like, they are a force to be reckoned with. And, I really do think it's their tournament to lose at this point. And I really think if they do win it all, there's going to be discussion that maybe they are one of the best teams to, ever go through this whole process. Correct me if I'm wrong, but would they be the first undefeated team since UNLV back in the 90s?
Indiana in 1974 or 6 or whatever the year is, because I think UNLV lost at some game. I think they only lost one game that year.
Okay,
but yeah, it's they're flirting with history. It's impressive. I mean, I got to do my favorite move right now, the Drew Timmy when he dunks it, and it's so sick. And they're playing with swagger, and it really is that offense because you watch, and it's just so different than every offense you see in college basketball because they cut, they move, and they constantly are sharing the ball. And I think I had Florida State beating Michigan. I thought they were going to play better defensively on the perimeter and had length to compete with Michigan. But the problem with Florida State is their offense is terrible. It's was so hard to watch. Everything's tough. It's nothing. You're like in quicksand. And Gonzaga is just so beautiful to watch, right? It's just like perfect offense, and it's just so smooth. They play well off each other. Getting the transfer from Florida, Nimhard, I think is how you pronounce it. That's a great pickup. And just hearing how Mark Few was like, hey, is this going to ruffle the locker room? Do we need him? And everybody's like, no, we want him. We can win a championship. That speaks to the character of that locker room. And back to your point, Kyle, I was a little bit nervous for the USC game because of the length of Mobley. I wasn't sure, but I guess both Mobley brothers, really, Evan and Isaiah, how they were going to match up. USC was shooting well, and it's like one of those teams, when they get hot and you have a top 3 pick in the upcoming draft, that's a tough competition. But immediately in the game, Gonzaga was in a track meet and USC was in a shot put competition. I mean, that was completely different levels of athleticism. And we're talking about Southern California athletes versus Spokane, Washington. And it was eye-opening just how elite Gonzaga is.
I think this is the way college basketball is going to move. The way that they play, I think that they're showing this year that nobody can play defense on that style of offense that they play, and they've been killing it in recruiting. They've been picking up all the people in the transfer portal. I think this is just the beginning of – we've been saying it for a long time, man. It's the beginning of the Gonzaga dynasty. But if they really win one and get that monkey off their back, it's going to be tough for people to compete with them.
Yeah, they've been flirting with it ever since the Adam Morrison days in the mid-2000s.
But who'd they lose to?
UCLA, yeah. Mm-hmm. A little revenge factor for Mark Few.
I mean, we talk about Gonzaga's offense too, but you look at their defense. I mean, they held when they were playing Creighton, 1 bucket over 7.5 minutes. They've been stepping up too. But if you're scoring 90 points a game on Gonzaga's side, you gotta match them shot for shot. And Baylor's the only team that might be able to do that. But we can get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good look ahead. Before we get across there, and before we kind of preview the Gonzaga UCLA game, because I think we all have a strong feeling about it. Let's just talk about the UCLA run that they've gone on here, because let's go back from the beginning. Mick Cronin was hired as the head coach, leaving Cincinnati. He was, I think the athletic director said he wasn't our third choice. Like, he might have been the 4th or 5th choice to be hired there. People lamented it, said it's not going to work. You can't get a Cincinnati guy in Beverly Hills. That's not. And look what he's done here. I tweeted, I thought, pretty funny tweets during the game. I was like, when did Mick Cronin move Cincinnati to Beverly Hills? Because, I mean, they legitimately they dig in on defense. It looked like it was going to get ugly in that Michigan game. And thank God for Johnny Juzang for that team, because if he didn't hit shots, that thing would have gotten ugly real fast. But they play defense. They compete. It really looks like a classic Mick Cronin team, and they're just wearing light blue uniforms that say UCLA on the top, on the front. And now Mick Cronin's in his first Final Four, repeating what Shaka Smart did at UCLA or at VCU, going from the first 4 into the Final Four. And really, let's not forget, they should have lost to Michigan State. Like, Michigan State choked that game away, and now here's history. UCLA's right back in it. It's been an impressive run. And if I didn't like Gonzaga so much and love this team so much and how they play, it'd be tough not to root for UCLA, because, they play together, they play hard, and Johnny Juzang's my guy, man. That stroke is pure.
Yeah, I was going to jump in real quick. I mean, UCLA right now is playing with, house money. They're leaving it all on the table. They have nothing to lose. They play hard, they dig in, and they play as a team, which, really shows, especially in college. If the team is inconsistent, not making shots, and the other team is, hunkering down on D, and they just, keep it together, clearly you could see you can make a run. And I think that's going to, bode well for the program in the coming years. I think it's going to bring a lot of people in, and they're going to have some talent.
You think John Calipari's kicking himself for letting Juzang walk out the door?
Well, they did that little CBS special, and it was really when Juzang went back home during the pandemic, and he was like, dude, what am I doing in Kentucky? I'm in LA. I'm a Southern Cal kid. I got to be back here. So I don't know if Calipari, maybe if he would have given him like a Ferrari or something.
Oh, he probably got one already.
Probably got one
down there. But they've been playing so hard, man. And to your point on Mick Cronin, like they were one of the top teams in pace over the last couple seasons, like dating back to the Lonzo Ball days. They just went up and down and up and down. Tiger Campbell now is just like he doesn't cross the half court line until 21 seconds on the shot clock, and they work for their looks. They run really good actions out there. It kind of got stale for a little bit when Juzang got hurt. That's something to monitor going forward, how his ankle feels moving into this game, because if he's not good to go and he's not the same guy dropping 25, Gonzaga is going to boat race them directly out the stadium.
Yeah, I think something to watch too. Let's move into this preview then, and just stick with this game. I don't know how Cody Riley matches up on the interior with Drew Timme. He's undersized. He's not as quick. And if Drew Timme is going to eat up Evan Mobley, my God, what's he going to do to Cody Riley? Because Hunter Dickinson at this point, that's your guy, Tyson, but he really only has one move down low, and that's over his right shoulder, a little jump hook. And it works because he's so big. Drew Timme has a whole bag down there. I mean, he had it all on display against USC. He's had it on display all year, but it was eye-opening what he did against the Mobley brothers, because he had jump hook, he had spin, go by, he can pass out. I mean, it's impressive what he can do down there. And when they go down there and you can get easy buckets with Timme, well, that opens up the floor for the shooters, i.e. Suggs can go downhill at will. And that's really the key to their offense. So I'm not sure how they match up down low just to start out with this game. And that's what I'm keying on as my true, like, what I'm watching for going into this one.
Yeah, you really asked, like, how does he match up? And the short answer is he doesn't. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be very interesting to see if they could get any sort of pressure down low and to see if they can, prevent that kick out to those shooters. Because if Gonzaga keeps making buckets the way they're doing it, like I said, there's no stopping them.
I'm curious what the matchup's going to be, if Jaquez is going to come out on Suggs or if he's going to be guarding Kispert, because I think he's probably their biggest chance at winning the game is if he can shut down one of those guys. But like I alluded to when we were talking, they got NBA players on this Gonzaga team. It's not guys going in the Gonzaga College Basketball Hall of Fame. These are lottery picks. So, like, you shut down Corey Kispert, then Jalen Suggs is going to go crazy. And then that's off of, like, Timmy's getting 20 and 10. That's what he does. He's done it. He just did it against like a top 3 prospect in Evan Mobley, great defender. So I think that one, you can just chalk that up as a win. I think it's going to come down to wing play. And I'm really keyed in on how Jaime Jaquez is going to play for UCLA.
He was quiet. He was quiet against Michigan. He's due. Same with Jules Bernard. I think he's an X factor.
Over 15 or something like that?
We'll see. He got hot against Alabama. What do you see going to this one, Kyle?
So yeah, I think UCLA's only real shot is if they can somehow shut down Drew Timme in the paint. And I really don't see that happening. But if they could do that and then control the pace and keep it to, longer possessions on offense and not let Gonzaga run up and down the floor, there might be a chance they can keep it, within 10 and maybe not and cover. But I don't see them winning outright.
Yeah, the line, it opened at 12.5. I think it's ballooned to 14, which is the biggest in Final Four history. As of now, at least that's what I read. There may be some conflicting reports. I'm not sure, but there's been some double-digit lines before, actually, and I think it's 50% on against the spread on each side. So we'll see what we can do here. To your point, Tyson, I want to circle back on this. I think Tiger Campbell's probably going to be guarding Jalen Suggs. How does that affect the offense of Tiger Campbell? Because he wants to get into the paint and create, but if he's spending his energy defensively trying to bottle up Suggs, that offense I think is going to be even throttled down further than it was against Michigan.
That's how I feel too. I just think like he's a high energy player on offense. He loves just probing in the lane and kind of getting to his spots. But I mean, for them to have a chance to win, he's going to play 40 minutes if he can. And that's saying that he's not going to get in foul trouble on one of the best guards in the country. and having to guard him. Like it's just bad, and you can't run a zone against Gonzaga because they're just going to make 43s.
Yeah, you saw USC tried because it worked against Oregon. That was not a mistake.
There's no clear way to beat this Gonzaga team, and that's going back to the argument of are they the best team ever? I don't know, but they're one of the best ones I've ever seen, because even going back when that Kentucky team was about to go 40-0, they lost to Wisconsin, I think, in the Final Four. Like every team that I've seen that has this moniker as the best, there's a way to beat them. I don't see the way to beat Gonzaga.
Yeah, no, that's how you said it eloquently there. I mean, there really is no glaring weakness for Gonzaga. Now, let's go to the other side of the bracket. Let's start with Baylor. Johnson alluded to them a little bit as they've started to get going, because they lost in the Big 12 tournament. And they, obviously a good team in Oklahoma State with Cade Cunningham, but they didn't perform very well down the stretch. They had a few COVID pauses. I think that really caught up to them. Just a lack of chemistry and on-court experience together. But they're an older team. They figured it out pretty quickly, and then they've really hit this tournament, and they got something to prove. Dominated Villanova, crushed Arkansas. It really wasn't as close as that score said, and they're starting to score at will like they did earlier in the season. Like they're hitting threes, they're getting into the paint, they're hitting tough shots. I've been impressed with their response this tournament. Scott Drew's had them ready to go. It's really, the thing about Baylor is they're really, really reliant on guard play. They're undersized as a team in totality, but this is a guard sport. So they play a lot of hybrid positions, and they execute extremely well. Baylor. So Johnson, you're high on Baylor. I know you are. Why are you so high on them?
I just like the way they've caught up with the momentum. That obviously they had a slow start to the tournament, and they've really caught on. You look at that game against Arkansas. They got out to that fast-paced lead. I think they were up. They had an 18-point lead 9 minutes into the game. I mean, you look at a team like Arkansas that's come back from double-digit deficits like every game, I think, in the tournament. They're one of those teams, right? But the reason, you look at a guy like Davion Mitchell, and you look at him, and he got in foul trouble early in that Arkansas game, but the way he came back, he's just, even though I think he finished with 12 points, but you look at a guy like him who's impactful on the court in more ways than one, whether he can make assists, make special plays, I think that's paramount in this Baylor team. And if, they can create turnovers the way they did really, throughout the tournament, especially against Arkansas, I think they could keep the score low against Houston, and I think they could cruise easily to the final. But it really just comes down to, how much play they can get from their guards in terms of scoring in regards to being able to keep up with Gonzaga, assuming they make it to the final.
I'll go. I think, personally for Baylor, you mentioned they're undersized. This is like a perfect Final Four matchup for them with Houston, because it's just going to be athletes. All 10 guys on the court are just there's really kind of positionless. They all play, like you guys mentioned, the three guards, but Mitchell's like 200. That boy's big. He's a big guard. He's super athletic. He can guard everywhere. And Houston played really well on the boards in the Elite Eight, but Baylor doesn't give those boards up easily. They play really hard, and that's what I've been most impressed with, because it would have been easy when Arkansas was coming back, cut it to 4 at one point. They could have rolled over, and instead they just made it look like that was just one of the runs in the game rather than the run to end their tournament.
Yeah. For myself, I don't have too much insight on either of these two teams. I have not watched their games very closely, I'll admit, but Baylor definitely has been getting hot recently, which is obviously important. We're coming down the stretch. It's the best time to be hot, and I really think they were impressive in their last game, coming out hot. Again, that's big, I believe, in college basketball. I mean, if you could put up 20-something points in the first 10, 15 minutes, and the other team is struggling, going into half with a lead, I think that really bodes well to your chances to win, especially with, college kids who can't score like obviously NBA players. But it'll be interesting to see how Houston handles this matchup. I've seen some people, online say that, Houston hasn't played a single seeded or single digit seed yet. They're all been double digits, So it'll be interesting to see. I believe this is probably the best team that they've played up until this point. So I'm just excited to watch the game.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really good game. And we had a group chat for those out there listening. I said early in the year, I was like, I think Houston's really good, and I think they have their ceiling's the Final Four because they're really well coached. Kelvin Sampson, they have older, solid guards, and they really defend well. And in college basketball, that goes a long way. We saw Virginia; they've made a staple on it, and how well they defend, and just elite defend. And we've talked about that Kentucky team with Anthony Davis. Shot blocker, eraser, Joel Embiid, that Kansas team. So we've seen dominant defensive performances, and it pushes you. Obviously, Michigan State, when we think about March, them playing defense. What Houston does extremely well is offensive rebound, and we saw that against Oregon State. They crash the glass hard. There's like 4 guys who crash the glass, and they get rebounds. Their best player is Quentin Grimes. He's a 3-and-D guy. He can create his own shot. Marcus Sasser, he's a shooter, a good ball handler, really good leader. But I think their most important player, their glue guy, is Giroux, because he does everything. He can go for 20, or he can only score 4 and impact the game, sometimes even more than when he scores 20. He's their heart and soul. They're a really well-connected bunch. Saying that as somebody who's watched them a lot this year, going into this matchup, the edge that Houston has will be offensive rebounding. That's where they're going to beat Baylor is second chance points. I think where Baylor has the advantage is pure shooting and just pure offense, because Houston can go on spells where they just don't make shots and they turn the ball over and they don't really value the possession. We saw it as Oregon State climbed back into the game in the Elite Eight after Houston was up big. Houston just stopped really caring about the ball and they stopped making shots, and all of a sudden here comes Oregon State climbing back in. So that's something to keep an eye on matchup wise, especially for someone like you, Kyle, who hasn't followed these teams too closely. That's kind of like my little cheat sheet for a matchup on this one. I expect Baylor to win. I think they're the better team. I just think they have more firepower, but there is an absolute way that Houston can hang and beat Baylor. And the double-digit seeds, they haven't faced a single digit yet. That's a nice little story, in my opinion, for sports talk people, writers, sports TV, whatever. It's just a point. But this Houston team is legit, and I think they're going to show it against Baylor.
Yeah, I'll definitely be looking forward to it. And like you mentioned, them sometimes being sloppy with the ball. That's definitely something that they're going to have to clean up, I think, if they're going to have a chance in this game.
And shout out to Kelvin Sampson, Montana Tech. I just want to get my shout out in.
Yeah, you texted me when they're playing Oregon State, because we actually know the Tinkles, because we're from Missoula. He was the head coach of University of Montana. So Tyson and I, we went to middle school, and not middle school, I guess. We kind of grew up, though, went to high school with Trace, who went to Oregon State and actually played for Wayne. And then we went to high school with Ellie Tinkle, was the middle sister, who played basketball at Gonzaga. And then the oldest sister, Jocelyn, she's like a 3-time champion or wherever she was at Stanford. So really great basketball lineage in that family. Wayne's just an awesome guy. I think Tyson, didn't you play the Grizz camp too for a couple years?
Yeah, I know Trace real well. I know Wayne. Good people, man. And it was nice to see. We don't always get represented over here, so it's nice to see.
Absolutely. So final 4 times. Houston and Baylor is at 5:14 this upcoming Saturday. So they're the early game. I think in the late game is Gonzaga 8:34. I think that spells big time trouble for UCLA, because Gonzaga always plays late games. So they're going to be comfortable. I think if they moved them up to 5:14, they'd have been like, oh shit, like we've never played this early before. But I can't wait for Saturday. This is going to be spectacular. I mean, if you're a fan of basketball, I think these are going to be really fun games. I don't know how good that late game is going to be. So yeah, it might be time to hit the sauce pretty early, but I think that 5:14 game is going to be a good one.
Yeah, it's definitely the better of the two. I wish it was second. I do wish Gonzaga UCLA was first, just to kind of get that one out of the way, and then because I don't want to go into Saturday night just with the Gonzaga blowout. But I mean, who knows? It could be a close game. Keep in mind the spread on that Baylor Houston game's 5.5. I don't know. I don't know what that means, but
Baylor favored.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I don't know how to pick that. So
I would lean taking points with Houston because I think it's going to be a very tight game. And the more you offensive rebound, the more possessions you get, the more chances to score. But that's how I lean right now. But
yeah, I would like a 4-point like Baylor victory, but I guess we'll see. I mean, even with Gonzaga and UCLA at 14, I hate betting those spreads. I hate the spread that's that high in the Final Four.
I immediately hammered Gonzaga minus 12.5. So
I did too, but
yeah.
I still hate that.
Well, I mean, we'll see, man. That team they don't lose. So Saturday. So do we want to do a look ahead? Let's say it's Gonzaga and Baylor. I think that's kind of the matchup everybody really wants, right? I mean, in my opinion, the two best teams in college basketball. I think if Baylor didn't have those stoppages, they had been 1-2 all year. Michigan crept up there and Illinois crept up there by getting hot. But if Baylor didn't have those stoppages, I think they would have been consensus easily number 2 the entire season. And I think that's kind of the matchup we deserve after taking a year off from March Madness. We're going to get the two best teams in the country going at it on Monday night. It's going to be spectacular. So if that happens, how do you look ahead with that one, Johnston?
Looking for a shootout. I'm looking for points. I'm looking for an 89-83 Gonzaga victory. I'm looking for maybe maybe flirting with a little overtime. Who knows? I mean, you're right. It's a matchup we deserve. If for some reason UCLA ends up playing Houston, I just can't get behind that. I'll tune in, see what's going on, but I mean, you're just looking for a melodramatic game. It's not going to be exciting. We deserve Gonzaga Baylor. It would be awesome. I mean, one of the more favorable finals that we've had in the past couple of years, I think.
I think I might be in the minority. I think I'd rather watch Houston play Gonzaga, but I don't think they're going to get by Baylor. I think Giroux is the only guy I've seen in the entire tournament that can be that X factor on defense to really try to crash Timmy and still get back on shooters. But I do think that Baylor's just going to be too much for him. But I think that game is going to be closer than people might think. I know the spread is tight, but I think general consensus is Baylor's going to win that game. Really no issue, which I do think they're going to win. And if that's the matchup, man, I'm looking for Gonzaga to really just put the demons to rest, man, and just go out there and get one. And it would be a great thing for that university, great thing for college basketball, really, because like we're talking about UCLA as the Cinderella. They got 11 banners. Like how is that's not a Cinderella? That's just they got hot at the right time. They got a coach with great pedigree. They got great athletes all the way up and down. Like, this is not Loyola Chicago. So, I mean, I think that Gonzaga winning would be great for parity in college basketball, especially with no Duke, North Carolina, Kentucky really being good this year. It kind of opens it up for next year. Like, oh, they didn't beat a blue blood, though. And that's something that I'm looking for.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I'd love to see actually Gonzaga, Baylor, and for a small non-Power 5 school like Gonzaga to go undefeated, beat a Power 5 school, and really make history. I think that'd be great for the sport, great for that university, the West Coast in general, and I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully it's a high-scoring, fast-paced game. That's kind of the style of play that I like, and I think that that can definitely happen, especially with Gonzaga, just how efficient and crisp they are on offense. They really can score at will. So that's what I'm hoping for. And I'm going to hammer the over. So.
Kyle's saying he likes YMCA ball. He just wants to see a pickup game on Sunday.
Yep.
Oh, I love it.
Can't lie about it.
Well, I think the NCAA wants it as well. I heard there might be hiring Tim Donaghy to ref both the Baylor and the Gonzaga game just to make sure it happens. Just to cover all bases. But
I got to get his bookie, and then I could bet on the same thing he did. We all make money.
Exactly. It's a win-win situation. All right, let's put a pin in that. Saturday, we'll see how these predictions come true, and then who's going to play for the championship on Monday. But let's switch over to a little hybrid, college football and NFL. As we know, and as everybody knows, pro days have been taking place. And I think pro days are a little bit overrated in terms of like, yeah, of course you're going to look good. Like, are you going to look shitty on your pro day? This is literally made for you to look like an elite athlete, an elite prospect. So I take it for what you will, but it certainly means that we're getting closer to the NFL draft. And we've seen some movement already with the Dolphins trading with the Niners, then the Dolphins trading with the Eagles. So we've seen some shakeups. The Niners now sit at the 3rd spot in the draft. Dolphins trade back, trade with the Eagles. Now they're 6th. The Eagles are somewhere in the teens. Howie Roseman's being crazy. But what are you guys excited for most upcoming? Like, I guess here's my question around the draft. Is it more the mock drafts that you guys like? Is it more the pro day type of measurables type of stuff, or is it the hype around the draft or the draft itself? Like, what's your favorite part of this process leading up into the draft?
Who do you want? You want to start, Johnson?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, Brad, you really hit the nail on the head there with pro days. I'm not a fan at all. Really, you put these guys in a comfortable environment. These are, the top athletes at their game. They're going to make these throws. They're going to make these, they're going to hit the speed for this 40. They're going to, hit certain reps or do whatever they do. Really, pro day should be just for the people on the bubble that really need it most. But what it's become is more just a spectacle of be like, hey, look at me. I'm going to make one throw and it's going to go viral on Twitter. I don't understand. I don't understand the point of that. But at the same time, really, it comes down to the people that really concentrate on the NFL that don't follow college football and that haven't seen these athletes play in games. Like, you look on a normal Saturday, you see Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, whoever, Zach Wilson making these throws constantly. But then, they look at him on pro day. It's like, okay, this is our guy. This is it. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's actually really good. Well, you already knew that if you watched the games. I don't understand the point of it. I think it's inflated. Like, there's really no need for it. Like I said, it should be for the people that, actually need it, that are maybe, a mid-round range or on the bubble of getting drafted. Really what I'm looking forward to the most, though, is the Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, what team's going to pick who when it comes down to the draft, because you look at it earlier where Justin Fields had that high stock and he was presumably going to be the number 2 guy, the number 2 quarterback drafted. And then Zach Wilson is kind of coming on strong here with his pro day and getting a lot of hype from a lot of teams. So it's going to be interesting to monitor that going forward.
I think for me, my favorite part of this whole thing is like the smoke screen season. I love it. I mean, right now it's like everybody. Mac Jones is going 3 to the Niners. You can book it. That's what everybody's saying. I've never seen a more perfect prospect for a Shanahan offense than Justin Fields. So, like, to say they're going to take Mac Jones definitively before we even get like a month out, when teams really start throwing shit at the wall and seeing what the media reports, that's what I like. But going back to the pro day thing, this year's been super weird because everything's hand timed. Like, all of these guys are scoring just ridiculous on their athletic scores. Like, everybody's running 4.4, 4.3. Yeah. Like, I mean, you got to take it with a grain of salt. And, like, I'm a big LSU fan. Jamar Chase just ran a 4.38. I watched every snap he took. He might be a 4.4 guy. That's fast, but, like, a 4.3, that's crazy. Kyle Pitts running these 4.4s. Justin Fields hitting 4.4s. Defensive ends running like 4.4. That's just, I mean, at some point, it's like, we get it. Like, whoever's running the thing's got a broken thumb.
Yeah, I completely agree with the previous 2 comments. I really don't hold pro days in crazy high regard. There's really not much that it's going to tell us that we didn't already know. There's no pass rush. They're not wearing pads. There's no DBs. They're not reading a secondary, backers dropping into coverage, safeties, spying and then dropping out. It's really all, I think, for show, and it has become a spectacle. Now, in certain instances, I do feel like it could help people on the edge or that didn't get a huge national spotlight. Zach Wilson is a pretty popular household name now, but, to be fair, he played at BYU. It's not a crazy big program. They played a lot of games, 10:30 p.m. People were busy doing other stuff or out. But, I think in that instance, it could help someone like him. Obviously, everyone knows he's super talented. From what I'm hearing and from my personal stance, I think he's definitely the number 2 guy. The Jets, in my opinion, would probably be stupid to pass on him. Now, whether or not they take him or not, that's another story. I think with a new head coach coming in and Darnold kind of just being a disappointment in many people's eyes, they're probably going to move off Darnold. It's just going to pain me to see him there because as a Patriots fan, and I do like Zach Wilson, it's going to be hard for me to root for his success moving forward, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think the locks so far this draft season is Trevor Lawrence 1 and Zach Wilson 2 to the Jets. And so here in New York, I listen to New York radio, and one of these guys I listen to, he wants the Darnold thing. He's like, well, what's the package that the Jets? I'm like, dude, there is no package that the Jets are going to trade and not get Zach. Like, Zach Wilson's their guy. Like they view him as their next Patrick Mahomes. And if you think that's your guy, I'm what, 3 first-round picks for what? A tackle, a linebacker, and a corner, or would you rather have Patrick Mahomes? So I'm not saying he's going to be Mahomes, but that's what they view him as in some aspect in that offense that is going to come from Kyle Shanahan. And Tyson, you said Justin Fields, perfect prospect for a Shanahan offense. Zach Wilson, I think, is really who they want. They're just hoping the Jets are the Jets and are stupid. And that's why they jumped up. They're like, let's just test Joe Douglas. He's coming from the Howie Roseman tree. If he is an idiot,
it's going to be a wide receiver that runs a 4.6.
But that's what I think so far. But I think there's a high possibility we're going to go quarterback as the first 3 picks taken with the Niners jumping up. I think 4 in a row.
I think
really
first 4. I think Atlanta would be wise to move out of that spot because if they're going to take a skill position player, their defense sucks. There's no guys like Micah Parsons is probably the only defender good enough that you could like talk yourself into, but that still would be a huge reach at 4. I think a team like Denver or Carolina is going to trade up to that 4 spot, especially with everything going on with Deshaun Watson. Like that whole sweepstakes is now closed until further notice. So I think it's either move up to 4 or get left at the altar for a lot of these guys.
Keep an eye on Carolina.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if a quarterback does end up falling. Like if Trey Lance falls to, I believe, 8, I think that's Carolina's pick. Does Carolina pick him up? Do you guys think?
I think so. I think they want a massive upgrade over Bridgewater, and they're going to be like, listen, we can get this guy, have him. Worst case scenario, sit for a year, but they'll probably try to shotgun him in there. Maybe 6 games in the season, kind of like what they did with the Rams did with Jared Goff. Like they planned on sitting him for a year, and it's like, we'll just play him after like 6 games. So I think they take him in a heartbeat.
I think Trey Lance would be great for Carolina, and we all know that Bridgewater is just a placeholder anyway. And Carolina has been desperate to find that guy ever since, Cam Newton's MVP days. So I think with that in place, you got to take him.
Yeah, and I think Trey Lance has that mythical upside that all NFL front offices chase because I watch a lot of FCS football, and I still have no idea like what he can be. With Wentz, it was pretty clear coming out North Dakota State, big arm, makes plays, wins games. Trey Lance is like he might be Justin Fields. He could be like somebody he could be Kellen Mond. Like it's hard to tell.
I think he's only thrown a little over 300 passes in college. An actual so it's not a huge body of work. So he's definitely a project, but I definitely think there's, potential for a huge upside there. Do you guys think with Miami at 6, let's just say for some weird reason, either Mac Jones or Trey Lance goes to the 49ers, Falcons either back out or don't take, because like Tyson said, they definitely need defensive players. Their front 7 is atrocious. But sitting at 6 with Miami, if Justin Fields, for example, is sitting there, or even like Trey Lance, do they move off of Tua?
I don't think so. I think they're fully committed to Tua at this point. Fitzpatrick's out. The front office has been nothing but supportive. Brian Flores has been nothing but supportive. They brought in one of Tua's old coaches. I think they're firmly committed to him for at least another year. And if it's like we got 3 first-round picks. If we can package something off in the future, some ass of some sort, maybe we can go get a quarterback. But I think they're ready to give the keys to Tua and at least see what he can do with the full season and full offseason.
I like Fields better than I like Tua as a prospect coming out. I think that there's 3 guys with Lawrence, Wilson, and Fields that I like better than Tua coming out. But like quarterback back-to-back, if you're not picking number 1 and you can't get like the guy, I think they'd be better served to take whoever's left over between Chase and Sewell and just kind of ride it out that way, or move back again, depending on what they want to do. But their team speed is slow on that offense. I think they could benefit at different spots before quarterback. And like Brad said, they got assets. In next year's draft, they got Xavier Howard, who they've apparently been trying to move off of for a little while now. So I would consider it if I were them, but I just don't think it's the smart football move.
Yeah.
It would definitely be tempting, but I think what they should do is really just take the highest graded player at what position, what's available right then besides the quarterback, and maybe give Tua a year. To be honest, I've never been high on Tua. I don't think he's, I don't think he could be an elite NFL quarterback. Obviously, I think there were rumors that, like Deshaun was going to go to Miami and maybe they were hoping for that. But obviously, everything that's happened has put that at a standstill. But, fair, give Tua a year. But I think just get the highest graded position, especially on offense. If they could get like a fast wide receiver or try to, even Sewell or something on the line. I don't know. But, just give something that Tua can work with and maybe see where it goes for a year.
Yeah, I'm way higher on Tua than all 3 of you guys, I think. He was my number 1 graded QB coming out into the Burrow Herbert class. I think he has potential, man. You can't teach accuracy. Look what that did for Drew Brees. It's a long career in the NFL when you're accurate, no matter how unathletic you are in the pocket. So I think if you get him some weapons besides Devontae Parker, you're going to see the success that Tua had. And yeah, he was thrown to an all-star cast at Alabama and did that inflate some of his stats, I'm sure, but extremely accurate. And I think under the right circumstances, he can be that leader in the locker room. But it feels like it's a prove-it year for Tua. And it's crazy to say that with these quarterbacks now, because it used to be, it's a rookie year, then it's a sophomore slump.
You have 1 year, 2 years.
Exactly. It's crazy.
There's so much turnover and there's so much on the market, the way it's fluid. It's insane.
It's crazy now. So it's a prove-it year almost every year now for these young guys.
Yeah, especially with players coming out like Justin Herbert, who literally just broke all these NFL rookie records for, quarterbacks in their first season. It really is like you have 1 season, maybe 2 to prove yourself. If not, you're out of there. And I think this definitely is a prove-it year for Tua if they do stick with him. And I think it would be wise if they plan on going that route to definitely draft someone on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense last year was already ball hawking. They were top 3 in turnovers, I think defensive touchdowns. So they're fine there. I think an underrated pick that not many people I've seen mentioned, but if he's still on the board, I would highly look into drafting Kyle Pitts if I was them. Now, I know they already have Mike Gesicki, but I think Kyle Pitts can just add another layer to that offense. He could line up out wide. He can line up on the line, and that's a dual threat at tight end at that point. That instantly becomes a top 3 or 4 tight end team in the entire league. And it definitely gives Tua some help. And with weapons like that, there really will be no excuses at that point. And I think it really will show them whether or not they want to stick with Tua or not moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And remember, Brian Flores comes from the Belichick tree, and he really loved that dual tight end with Aaron Hernandez and Gronk. And you think about it, it kind of is similar. Gesicki's that big, long, rangy guy like Gronk was. Then Hernandez/Pitts, the speed and the chess piece that you can move around. And Tua really loved O.J. Howard in college. He loves the tight end, loves the middle of the field. So that's a good pickup. It'd be tough for me to turn down Jamar Chase if he's still there, because I think it's just so perimeter dominated, save for Tom Brady, which what he does dissecting the middle of the field. But the other quarterbacks that have had success, a lot of it's just outside of the hashes if you're going to go deep in the playoffs. So it'd be tough for me to turn down Jamar Chase, but I really like that Pitts thing. I might be changing my tune on that. That's a really good point. Let's go. Let's switch back to the evil empire, because we had a year break last year after Tom Brady left, and it turns out the people who thought they hated Tom Brady actually really liked him. It was just that he was in the evil empire and he was part of the empire, right? Everybody was taking shots at the Patriots. Down year for him. Didn't look good. Cam Newton looked terrible at the quarterback position. But they've retooled, they've reloaded, and now it looks like Bill Belichick's on his way to, competing for the division. They're going to have to, at this point, in my opinion, it's got to go through Buffalo. I think we're at that point with Josh Allen and McDermott, but they are reloaded and they're ready to go. We'll let Kyle open with this one since this is his team. When you saw it happening, were you shocked, I guess? Because I think a lot of people were surprised how much money Bill Belichick was willing to dish out. But were you shocked as someone who's followed this team as a fan so closely?
I'm going to say I was a little surprised, but I think it was much needed, especially from the tight end perspective. And we picked up Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, which I'm extremely ecstatic about. Now, he has had some injury issues, but I think once, he gets healthy and he's rolling, that's a two-headed monster there in New England. And like you alluded to earlier, with Bill Belichick, he loves the dual tight end system. He loves running, drag routes and stuff over the middle of the field. Likes opening up, heavy with the run game and the play action. So I really feel like those are two A+ pickups, in my opinion. On the outside, we got Aguilar from the Raiders. He had a pretty decent season last year. He's not obviously one of my preferred wide receivers, but he could take the top off, which is something that we were lacking last year. So again, that kind of just adds another layer to our offense. We'll have Edelman back. We re-signed James White. So we're going to have some offensive pieces now. And, last season, again, not many people say this, but they had 8 defensive starters opt out, which is huge. Again, Belichick is a defensive coach. And, they weren't a terrible defensive team last year, but they definitely weren't what they could have been if those players, would have stayed. Now, granted, Patrick Chung did end up retiring. Love him forever. He did so much for the team. I only wish him the best with his endeavors, outside of the league now. But I really feel like we're going to be reloaded, and Belichick's going to have everyone on that tight wire going forward. It'll be Cam's second year in the system. It's been heard many times that New England has probably the most complex offense in the league. So a little bit of a learning curve. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt coming in. But I think, it's going to be a lot of what we saw last year, heavy run team into play action. And now we have some weapons at the tight end position to throw to. We have someone who could take the top off. We have Edelman, still doing his incredible feats over the middle. Probably the toughest player I've ever watched play, especially at the wide receiver position. So I'm really looking forward to what's to come for the Patriots. I'm very highly optimistic. I definitely feel like they will be a 10-win team and get into the playoffs.
Okay,
Granted,
there we go.
I don't think they're going to win the division necessarily, but I definitely feel like they are a playoff team at this point.
Okay, there's a little prediction for you. AFC fan Johnston, what do you think about the reloading? Because they're your nemesis. Remember, Patriots, they always beat the Steelers.
As a Steelers fan, ever since the 2001 AFC Championship, where they beat the Steelers, I have experienced 20 years of brutal tyranny from New England, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and its fan base. That's the majority of my life. I'm 28 years old, right? I was heartbroken when the Steelers lost that championship game and the Patriots went on to win the Super Bowl. And it's amazing how Tom Brady can be such a likable guy when he's not in New England. Now, I would lie if I said I didn't enjoy last year when they were down. I love seeing Belichick frustrated. I love seeing Tom Brady succeed with another team. I love the chaos that was in New England. Like, they're trying to figure things out. This is great. Cam's washed up. They got no quarterback. This is awesome, right? I like to see them competitive. I'm glad they made all these signings. I know Belichick is smart enough that he knows what he's doing with these signings, to put all that money in, to invest in Cam, even for just another year, to see what to get that back potential that Cam has. I mean, we're talking about an NFL MVP here at one point, right? Not too long ago. There's still something there, and if anyone could harness what Cam has, it's Bill Belichick and his staff. So I hope they're competitive this year. I hope they get it going. Because it's just, let's be frank, it's like it's more enjoyable when New England's kind of in it and good. And now that they have this rivalry with Buffalo sort of leading the division and you know, taking back the AFC East, it's exciting. And then maybe if the Jets can get their shit together, and then maybe if Miami can do something with Tua, maybe we have a more competitive division than, you know, New England running away with it every year. So I'm excited.
Did not expect it to go that route. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't know, man. What you wanted me to say? Like it's.
I was honest.
I love to see the Patriots miserable. I love it, but it is more exciting when they're good and when Cam's good and, you know, Bill Belichick. I love to see him flustered. It's so great. Wow, I just sounded like Trump there.
Getting snippy with the reporters, the Belichick, like when he gets pissed. What about you, Tyson? What was your thoughts? I think there was a little skepticism within you about this. All the signings. What did you think?
First of all, I think the Jonnu Smith signing was the biggest one of the offseason for him. I know people are head over heels for Hunter Henry, and rightfully so. He's a really good tight end. But outside of like the Aaron Hernandez days, they love inline blocking tight ends. And Jonnu Smith is one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. He's 25 years old. To lock him down, and he's a freak athlete. I think that he's going to be their X factor going forward. The one misstep I think they had this offseason is spending all of their money so soon. I think that Aguilar contract is fine, but like John Brown's going for his going rate is a year and a couple $1 million. They paid Nelly a lot of money. And if they can unlock that potential, then it'll be a steal. But I just think that they set the market on some of these guys in a year that they didn't necessarily need to. Granted, they had the money to do it, and the cap's going to go back up. So maybe I'm going to look like an idiot if the cap rises $30 million next year. But I think that the best thing to happen to them is, like Kyle said, a lot of people coming back that weren't in the system, weren't in the locker room last year, that are champions, that know the Patriot way, that respond well, and can really get these guys going. And I'm excited to see how they're going to use Jonnu Smith. I know what Hunter Henry is. I think Jonnu Smith has a level above that he can reach that he wasn't able to do in Tennessee because they lost Taylor Lewan, and he had to do a lot more blocking duties in Tennessee, which allowed Fursker to kind of come out and play well. And I think the Patriots are just such a machine on the offensive line. They got guys stepping in all the time you've never heard of that put together great seasons. So I think they're going to let Jonnu he'll be eating for the next 4 or 5 years. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. I don't like Cam Newton anymore. I mean, I'm a fan of his personally, but I don't think he's the guy taking you to the second round of the playoffs anymore, unless you get a great matchup. So I'd be looking to see what they have planned at the quarterback position, depending on what San Francisco does. I know everybody's saying that Jimmy's not coming home, but, I mean, his value's got to be at an all-time low, especially around the trade deadline. Once Wilson, Fields, Lane, like whoever they take, really is ready to step in San Francisco, I think Jimmy's going to get shipped back to New England.
Wow. Okay. We got some takes here. So here's a little food for thought, because I saw Belichick spending, and he's never spent this much money before this early in free agency, maybe even ever. I forget what the actual number is and how those statistics break down. But I was thinking how much leeway he has to be able to do something like this, and obviously with good reason, which is how good of a coach he is in the history he's had. But when's the last time that the top spenders in free agency have ever done anything in the NFL? Like Washington always is a high spender. The Raiders are notoriously spend and overpay. The Eagles, as Tyson and I know very well, one year went and Vince Young shouted Dream Team. It just doesn't happen. And now we're sitting here, we're like, oh my God, Belichick signing all these guys, like it's going to be great. And it's like, do we say it because it's Belichick and that's obviously deserves it? Or is it because Or should we really look at it like how the history of the NFL is like the reason why they're spending so much money to try to get new players is because their players suck. You know what I mean? So they're trying to do an overhaul through free agency because dirty secret in New England, Bill Belichick has not done a good job drafting in the past 5 years, maybe even the last decade. If you really look at it, their great players have come from inside the league signings because their drafts have not been very good. So I was like, let's pump the brakes a little bit with just being like, oh, the Patriots are back. They still got Cam Newton who can't throw a football. And so I always say, let's pump the brakes a little bit. I don't think the divisions, I mentioned off the top of this talking point, the division's not New England's anymore, in my opinion. It runs through Buffalo. McDermott's a great coach. Josh Allen, he's going to be an MVP candidate for a few years as long as the offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, stays until Josh Allen's really ready to make that next step. So it's going to be tougher, especially with the harder division. I think Miami's getting their shit together. Who knows about the Jets? That's always a wait and see type of deal, but it's going to be tougher for Bill.
Yeah, I actually do want to mention something and circle back to the one point you just made about, what has a team ever done signing a lot of free agents? Well, I could make the argument that Tampa just won the Super Bowl last year. Signing Brady, Gronk, Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette. I'm pretty positive that all four of them scored the touchdowns, all the touchdowns for Tampa in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, that's just one quick example that, when the right pieces are there and they're in the right system, you never know what could happen. And I think, McDaniels and Belichick have proven that system that they have going up there definitely, I'd say, works to some degree. And I believe that if everyone's focused on the team, they can definitely, I think, easily now with the talent they have, especially on offense, hit 10 wins. I'm not going to go over that just because, again, they are new and it is going to be their first year in the system. And I'm not a huge fan of Cam as a football player. Again, he's a cool guy personally, but he's not, someone to take the top off anymore. His accuracy has never been a strength of his, which is something that I value pretty high as a quarterback, especially in the NFL. But if you guys, I don't know how much of the New England games you guys watch, but last year they were two bonehead plays, away from winning two more games. If Cam wasn't making ill-advised throws or fumbling the ball inside Buffalo's 20. So, that's a 9-7 team last year if that didn't happen.
Very impressive. 9-7 team too, if all things considered.
And yeah, and then the Kansas City game, they were in it at halftime. Cam had COVID, I believe. It was Stidham and Brian Hoyer in there. Two possessions inside Kansas City's 10 ended up with no points.
Mm-hmm.
I think before half time expired, and then another time I think they fumbled or threw a pick. But it was just come on, man. They were competitive in these games. So I definitely feel like with the rejuvenated offense that they seem to have going, I think it's very feasible that they're a playoff team, and that's what I'm saying they will be.
Interesting thing, spot that I was following actually that caught my eye this offseason, the New York Giants. And I don't know, it might be having something to do with all the Giants talk I hear on the radio, but they're an interesting spot because they got Kenny Galladay, that's really what the Giants need. They needed a number one guy. It all depends on the health there for Kenny Galladay. But we're coming in on, is Gettleman the guy at GM? We think Joe Judge is a guy at the helm and the head coaching position, but it's really all about Daniel Jones this season. So they go out and get a receiver. Hey, what does Daniel Jones look like with a true number one? I don't know. A lot of my friends are Giants fans. They're pretty high on this season. I think best case scenario, the Giants they finish second. I don't see there's a path for them to win this division with Dak coming back, presuming he's healthy. I think Washington got a lot better, but I don't think Daniel Jones is the guy for the Giants. And I was fairly high on Daniel Jones coming out. I didn't think he was going to be awful. I mean, people were saying immediate bust when he was taken so high. I didn't go that far, but I don't see the juice with this team. and I'm intrigued to see how they perform. Barkley's going to be back, but I think the O-line still sucks. That's something that they haven't addressed, and it feels like the same old Giants. They just got Kenny Galladay and say, hey, hopefully he fixes everything.
Yeah, I mean, the state of New York football is not great, and it's great to have Saquon back. Daniel Jones at best can be your your average quarterback to help you win a few games, but nothing special is ever going to come from it. They have to start thinking long term in regards to just rebuilding that offense around Barkley and getting that quarterback that could elevate them to take that next stance to win a division title and be competitive really in the playoffs. And I just don't see that with Daniel Jones. You're right.
I think that you being high on Daniel Jones doesn't speak too well to my confidence in Tua, since you just mentioned you were high on him too. But no, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, we were talking about prove it years with Tua, and this is definitely the same thing with Daniel Jones. I mean, if there's a guy with a bigger catch radius in the NFL than Kenny Galladay, you got to show him to me, because this dude, he goes up and he gets everything. And we know Daniel Jones is not putting it right on your back shoulder. They're going to be difficult balls to catch. I think Sterling Shepard's okay. I think Darius Slayton's okay. I think Evan Ingram is overrated. I think that that's something they need to address too, because he cost them 2 games last year, and they're sitting there bitching about the Eagles benching Jalen Hurts like they didn't make the playoffs. It was play better. That's on you guys. And now Saquon coming back, I think this will be the best offense he's ever led by a comfortable margin. The defense it's good. I mean, it's above average. I wouldn't it's not Washington's defense in the same division. And I agree with you that Dallas with Dak, if they can go get a corner in the draft, they're going to be looking a lot better. Washington just really was a quarterback away from, they gave the Bucs the biggest fight they had in the playoffs last year with Taylor Heineke. And they got Curtis Samuel coming in too. So, I mean, it's a classic New York Giants offseason where everybody's all hype on them before the season starts, and it's 9-7, somewhere in there. I mean, things have to break really well for this team to win 10 games.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree for the most part. The Giants, their offensive line is still pretty atrocious, in my opinion. And if you can't protect your quarterback or your running back, especially in today's league where offense is so prevalent, I don't see them winning the division or making the playoffs in that case. I definitely do think it probably is a prove it year for Daniel Jones, with the with Kenny Galladay coming in. That's probably, since I guess, did Beckham play with Daniel Jones at all?
I don't think so.
No? Well, this might be Daniel Jones' best receiver that he's played with in the NFL up until this point. But we got to see. I mean, if Saquon's again getting hit in the backfield every time he touches the ball, what are they going to do? We have no run game. It's hard to do play action or push anything down the field. I am a fan of Wayne Gallman. I think he hits the hole pretty hard, and he's pretty decent in pass protection. So I definitely like to see him continue to be featured in some degree in the offense. I think he's definitely a valuable asset and an underrated asset at that to the team. And, for Joe Judge, as a Patriots fan, it hurts me in any capacity to, somewhat root for the Giants. But Joe Judge coming from New England, it seems like he's pretty well liked there up until this point. So I hope for his own sake and, his legacy and just tenure as a head coach, I hope it works out for him there.
And Wayne Gallman getting more features, that'll help with the health of Saquon Barkley. You're not going to pound him into the ground. He's definitely not like an Adrian Peterson type of guy. Again, if you are Adrian Peterson, I mean, this dude's still playing in the NFL, which is crazy. But yeah, that'll help out a lot. I agree with the Gallman point there. But guys, I think the biggest story of the offseason came, a couple days ago, that maybe it was yesterday, but time's kind of flowing together here. But the NFL decided that they're going to approve a 17-game schedule, and it's going to be effective immediately. So next season, we're going to have 17 games. Let's go around the horn here. Just initial thoughts when you heard it. Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you intrigued by it? Johnson, leave it on me.
I love it, man. More football. One less preseason game. Obviously, it was, approved by the owners, by the NFL and all that. They wanted this. They were pushing it. I didn't expect it to come so soon. This is really a shock to me. I just saw it come out of the blue. And, obviously there were talks, but, for it happening right now, that kind of threw me for a loop. But I like the way the matchups are set up, where they're doing cross conference, same position in another division. So, for example, the Seahawks are going to play the Steelers. You're going to get some really great matchups out of this. You're going to see Green Bay, Kansas City. As far as having 17 games in the regular season, we kind of, last year they added another wild card team, right? So, things are changing. People didn't like that, but I think it's going to be more accepted just because you're going to get used to it. And, it might be a big deal to some people now, but in the long term, it's not going to matter. So, this was kind of, this has been in talks for years now, as far back as, 7-8 years. So I'm glad they finally pulled trigger on it. And, I think it's a good thing all around, except for the players. We'll see what their reactions are moving forward with this.
I mean, shout out to the Chicago Bears for never having a 4,000-yard passer in the 16-game season. Only team to finish with that stat. And their owner's the only one that voted against the schedule. I wonder if there's a little connection there.
I think there's a correlation, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's fine. Cut the preseason down. That's the hopes. And if you're like a bottom of the roster guy, another paycheck doesn't hurt. It's just going to be so weird seeing 10-7. Like these records.
You're no longer 500. There's no more 500 teams.
Right.
That's it's crazy.
And then on top of it, like I'm going to have to explain to my kids in 20 years why their generation's Andy Dalton is not better than Drew Brees. He just got to play more games. Like that's the argument I'm not looking forward to having.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, for myself, I mean, I'm all for cutting out a preseason game. Definitely cut down on those. I think there's meaningless and pointless injuries that occur when players didn't have to be on the field that take place in the preseason, which can damper a team's, whole beginning of the year. In terms of the extra game being added, I mean, again, as an avid football fan, it's going to be nice for me to watch an extra game, but I'm also hesitant because looking at it from the player's perspective, I don't know if I'd actually want to play another game. Again, with the risk of injury before the playoffs, you also might see if a team has a 2 or 3 game lead in the division, they might be sitting all their starters to, again, protect the health of their starters. So hopefully towards the end of the season, there's not a lot of that going on, but I have a sneaking suspicion that there will be, especially from teams like Kansas City, who's probably going to continue to blow a lot of that division out of the water. So we'll see in that regard. But I think overall it was kind of unexpected, but I think it's a little early to say if it's going to be positive or negative. That's just my personal view on it, though.
Yeah, that's not. I think those are all valid points. For me, when I saw it, I was like, well, about time, because I think we all knew it was going to come because the money is going to increase, and not just for the owners, but for the players as well, 50-50 rev split. So the players will benefit in terms of what they're going to get in their pocket at the end of the day when we go back to the TV deal and when we really see how that breaks down. I love the ability, Johnson, you kind of ran through it, the ability to flex schedule a lot of these now, like the interesting matchups across divisions. I think that's good for the game. That's going to build more excitement. So in terms of what it does for the NFL, I think it continues to grow. It's going to continue to generate interest, right? So a Seattle team faces a Pittsburgh team. That, are we going to be able to have, I don't know, an LA Boston, Lakers Celtics type of rivalry somewhere in the NFL instead of just it being coastal, New York versus Philly, Dallas versus Philly, even though, that's a different time zone, but just in terms of that with division stuff. So I think it's good. To your point, Boakman, I am intrigued with the players. I would like a double bye, to be honest. I think that's fair if we're going to be nitpicky. And as much as buys suck, I mean, when you're playing, do you really even notice? Like sometimes it sucks when your team's not playing, but it's like, you kind of look forward to the bye. You can just relax on red zone. You don't have to have multiple screens up. So as a consumer, I'm excited. For the players, I think it's good. They're going to make more money in general. The cap should go up for them. And I would just like for them to go forward. The NFL should institute a double bye. I think that'd be fair for all parties involved.
Yeah, I like that. And it's also going to allow the NFL, as they continue to expand to the UK or even Mexico, more flexibility in scheduling those games, getting more teams overseas, try to put more product, in that environment to see where there might be a case for a possible London team. So I think that's part of it as well, just more flexibility overall in terms of scheduling. Double bye is a great idea. I like all that.
That's interesting. I never even thought about that. Put a bye before London game, bye afterwards for everybody. That could be something they're looking at down the road. That could open up a lot of doors.
Unless Shad Khan just moves the team there. I mean,
bro, with Trevor Lawrence, they're going to be packing this day.
Yeah, you're right.
People are back.
What I'm looking for is the Tom Brady homecoming in New England.
Ooh, yeah.
That's going to be very,
Are
very
you booing?
interesting.
Are you guys going to give like a 10-minute standing ovation and then go to booing, or is it just all love all game?
I mean, I love Tom Brady. I've said this 100,000 times. I'm his biggest fan. Anything he does, I will support him in. I wish him nothing but the best. And other than this game, when he's playing New England, I hope he wins every game. And if New England isn't in the Super Bowl or doesn't have a deep run in the playoffs, I hope Brady wins another. And that's just coming from a diehard fan of literally 16, 17 years now. So,
well, so his routine in the gym is actually TB12. He just unveiled it to us. He's doing the TB12 method.
Yeah, I am.
That's routine.
Trying to keep my youth.
Yeah, trying to do the Benjamin Button.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we've almost been going for an hour and a half here. I think we said we had a lot to say. I think we definitely said a lot. We do have more to say, but let's table a lot of conversation because I think there's gonna be more moves coming up as we get closer to the draft. There's gonna be more movement. We say this every year. At the NFL draft, there's gonna be movement. I think it's gonna be more pre-draft movement than normally on draft day movement. So I'm excited for that. Free agency, I think, is still going to continue to ramp up, or just other name signing, trades, yada, yada, yada. Back to what we were talking original Saturday. Can't wait for the games with college basketball. Hopefully get a great matchup Monday. And we'll have to do this again, boys. It's always a fun time. Always a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on.
Just one thing on the soccer side. The
soccer corner.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
I had a lot of notes, but we're gonna cut this short because I don't know. The Premier League's been pretty standard this year. It hasn't been too exciting. Man City's going to win another title, run away with it, with Liverpool being down. But the big news is the U.S. men's national team fails to qualify for the Tokyo Olympics for the third straight year. Honduras will be representing for their fourth straight. So shouts to the men's national team.
So here's the thing. Does that suck? Yeah, it's not very good, but it's all U23 for the Olympics. So
yes,
a lot of those U23 players are on the men's national team, and they were playing at the same time. So it was really like the C squad.
I agree, but there still should be more expectations, higher expectations.
There should be.
And it's a little bit disappointing. I just love the way the teams are set up in Europe with the academies, with the culture that they instill even when they're 7 to 10 years old. It's insane. But on a lighter note, we have the Champions League quarterfinals coming up here next week. I think Liverpool's still your favorite, Bayern second, and then Chelsea's got a good draw with Porto, to make it to the semis. So keep a note on that.
This is the year Man City wins it. I'm telling you.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. And then keep an eye on Christian Pulisic moving forward. His future with Chelsea is uncertain. Basically, Mason Mount he's been, those two have been really fighting for a position, and Mason's been getting the better deal with the new, with Thomas Tuchel as the new manager there. So keep an eye on him this summer. Maybe he might be moving somewhere else. We'll see. But he's the pride of the American side. So we hope for him the best.
It's pretty crazy with the Tuchel thing because he was the coach at Dortmund. He really gave Pulisic the first chance. So
that was what the initial reaction was. This is great for Pulisic, but it's taken a complete 180. So
he's got to get his hamstrings healthy, man.
He's been injury prone. It's setting him back, and there's so much potential that are unlocked. So we'll hope for him to rebound here. And if he finishes strong, he could stay at Chelsea for a long time. But ultimately, we're going to see. We could see Mohamed Salah make a move, but I don't think with the financial crisis and the whole COVID thing, a lot of teams have the money to pay for him. Paul Pogba, United, kind of the same thing. So there's a few people that could be on the move, but we'll keep that in mind moving forward this summer.
Yeah, it should be fun, man. I love football. I can't believe I cut you out in your soccer corner.
And that's John's soccer corner. I know that's what the people are here for.
Hey, that was good. It was a good little tidbit. I know Bokeman thinks you're speaking Chinese right now. He only likes the World Cup.
Yeah, I only like the national teams. Speaking of that, I cannot believe Germany lost.
Oh my
today.
God! Was it North Macedonia? Something.
Yeah.
Insane. Historic.
So bad. It's so bad.
Sad.
Also, little tidbit as well for the John Soccer Corner. Lewandowski's out for 4 weeks. He's going to miss the PSG matchup. And Bayern might be able to be beaten by PSG. So
yeah,
that's
that's your most interesting quarterfinal matchup for the Champions League. So I'm going to tune into that, and y'all should too.
All right. Well,
I do have one recommendation. If you're not into soccer and want to start to get into it, listen to the Caught Offside ESPN football podcast. It's hosted by Andrew Gudling, who's like this middle-aged white guy, suburban dad outside New York with kids. And then it's this JJ Devaney. He's this Irish dude who's funny as hell. And it's a good way to get into the whole soccer world and see what's going on. And, if you're interested, check it out.
Hell yeah. We'd love the plugs. Well, boys, again, this has been spectacular. Love doing the sports companion shows. For you tuning in, we appreciate it. Appreciate the support. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the conversation. We're going to continue to keep them going. So from myself, Brad, to Johnston, to Tyson, to Kyle, appreciate you guys coming on. I appreciate you all listening out there.
Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, walk around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed, never stressed. Got that sunshine on my Sunday best. Hey, every day can be a better day despite the challenge. All you gotta do is leave it better than you found it. It's gonna get difficult to stand, but hold your balance. I just say whatever, cause there is no way you're around it. Everyone falls down sometime, but you just gotta know it'll all be fine. It's okay. It's okay, it's okay. Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, walk around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed, never stressed. Got that sunshine on my Sunday best. Hey, some days you wake up and nothing works, you feel surrounded. Gotta give your feet some gravity to get you grounded. Keep good things inside your ears just like the waves and sound it. And just say whatever, cause there is no way you're around it. Everyone falls down sometime, but you just gotta know it'll all be fine. It's okay. It's okay, it's okay. Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, walk around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed, never stressed. Got that sunshine on my Sunday best. Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, walk around the neighborhood.